Chaos in Chicago and Portland as President Trump sends in federal authorities to attempt to restore order. Bombshell text messages roil Virginia's November elections, and we have got the latest on the federal government shutdown as it enters week 2. All of that and so much more today on 10 Minute Drill.
Everybody get up, get up.
The story of America is the story of an adventure.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
We are a nation under God, and I believe God intended for us to be free.
First this week, terrifying reports out of Chicago. This from Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin. This morning, during routine patrolling in Broadview, in the same area of Chicago that law enforcement were assaulted yesterday, our brave law enforcement officers were rammed by vehicles and boxed in by 10 cars. Agents were unable to move their vehicles and exited the car. One of the drivers who rammed the law enforcement vehicle was armed with a semi-automatic weapon. Law enforcement was forced to deploy their weapons and fire defensive shots at an armed U.S. citizen who drove herself to the hospital to get care for wounds. Pritzker's Chicago Police Department is leaving the shooting scene and refuses to assist us in securing the area. There is a growing crowd, and we are deploying special operations to control the scene. Police scanner revealed orders going down to Chicago police officers, calling on them not to respond.
They were requesting the police were not sending. I'm waving off all of the cars heading to 39th Place in Kedzie.
To make matters even worse, yesterday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, currently experiencing about a 6% approval rating, which is about on par with most venereal diseases, issued an executive order barring ICE from using any city-owned facilities. In response to this chaos, President Trump announced on Sunday night that they would be calling up 400 members of the Texas National Guard to deploy to Chicago and other cities currently experiencing this chaotic level of crime. J.B. Sausages, the governor of Illinois, had a response to that.
They want mayhem on the ground. They want to create the war zone so that they can send in even more troops.
Viewers can decide for themselves whether J.B. Pritzker is right that there's nothing to see here in Chicago, but the murder statistics we see every week, combined with the fact that federal agents are being attacked for doing their job, which is, for one, carrying out the will of voters who wanted to see illegal immigrants in the United States deported, we can all agree that this is not a safe situation in Chicago. Last week, National Review revealed text messages from the Virginia Democrat Attorney General candidate Jay Jones, revealing that he had fantasized about murdering a political opponent. Dem AG nominee Jay Jones fantasized about shooting former Virginia GOP Speaker. He receives both bullets.
The Washington Post confirms Jay Jones sent texts that imagined shooting the Republican Speaker of the House. Jay Jones wished the Speaker's wife could watch her own child die in her arms. It's so disgusting. It's hard to believe, but it's true.
But that's not all. Yesterday, Brandon Jarvis, in his Substack, Virginia Political Newsletter, reported a little bit further. Carrie Coiner, the Virginia Republican who had released those first texts, also described a conversation that she had had with Jay Jones about police officers and qualified immunity and the danger that they are put in every day. Coiner says Jones told her in a 2020 phone call that a few police officers dying would stop them from killing other people. And I said, I believe that people will get killed. Police officers will get killed. And he said, well, maybe if a few of them died, that they would move on, not shooting people, not killing people. The person who wants to be the top law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia has openly talked about being okay with police officers getting killed in the line of duty. That is also very, very shocking. Here is Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin.
This is unbelievable. And what's shocking also is that after calling for the normal apology, the Democrat candidates, Abigail Spanberger and the rest of them, were out campaigning this weekend like it was nothing.
While Virginia Democrats have refused so far to call on Jones to step aside, one person surprisingly did call on him to step aside.
About a state lawmaker, we'll go through what the messages said.
Probably be forced to withdraw from the race.
A couple points here. Democrats refusing to drop their endorsement of Jay Jones now face the fact that by continuing to endorse Jay Jones, they endorse his statements, including wishing to be able to assassinate a political opponent and wanting to watch their political opponent's children die. One question that I have is, as Democrats shrug this off and act like it's no big deal, what else are they saying to each other about their political opponents? This is horrific, and Abby Spanberger, the gubernatorial candidate, is going to have this issue chase her until she calls on Jones to step aside. Late last week, a U.S. district judge announced the sentencing for the would-be assassin of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
A judge yesterday sentencing Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's attempted assassin to just 8 years in prison. Federal prosecutors had asked for 30 years.
Particularly notable was the fact that the judge in this case took the would-be assassin's transgender identity into account when giving such a shockingly lenient sentence. Here is Judicial Crisis Network's Carrie Severino reacting to that point.
It's really disturbing that his mental health concerns and his concern of gender dysphoria was given as a literal get-out-of-jail-free card here. That's not how our system should work, and it's going to create a lot of bad incentives for people.
As Carrie outlined there, this is scary for the future of cases like this, where some would-be criminals and assassins might just attempt to use things like transgender identity as a get-out-of-jail-free card. The Department of Justice is appealing this case, and we are all hopeful that we will see a much more just outcome. As of this morning, the federal government shutdown rages into its second week. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt on that.
Their funding proposal would result in nearly $200 billion spent on health care for illegal aliens and other non-citizens over the next decade.
The reality is, the longer this shutdown drags on, the worse it is for Democrats, because people are learning more and more about what Democrats are demanding for the shutdown. And one person who has been particularly bad in attempting to defend Democrats is House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries. Here he is on Sunday.
It's Democratic senators who are withholding their votes on what is called a clean resolution. That means no strings attached, which is something, quite frankly, leader, that you and other Democrats have advocated for in the past. Take a look.
You do not use the threat of shutting down government to try to advance your policy agenda.
First thing that the House has to do is pass a clean 6-week CR.
A continuing resolution that is at the fiscal year 2023 levels is the only way forward.
Yikes. And this is not the first really bad media hit that Hakeem Jeffries has had on this issue. You'll remember that just last week in a CNN interview, Jake Tapper presented him with the bill text that showed that Democrats were allowing illegal immigrants to get Medicaid access with their version of the continuing resolution. Let's show that.
It's right here, subtitle E, and this has to do with the repeal of healthcare subtitle changes, and specifically what it is. How they characterize it is you want to give health insurance to undocumented immigrants. I understand that's not really an accurate depiction, but what it does do is...
It's a lie.
It's a lie, but what you support does bring back funding for emergency Medicaid to hospitals, some of which does pay for undocumented immigrants.
But the but there from Jake is so important, because what he is saying is, you're saying that you guys don't want to give free healthcare to illegal immigrants, but here's the bill text where you guys do just that. And Hakeem Jeffries and now a number of Democrats, when presented with that bill text, have looked like they did not know it was in there. There is a very good chance that the Democrat continuing resolution written by Patty Murray has not actually been read by the Democrats, who did not realize they have opened the door to get illegal immigrants back on Medicaid that Republicans had closed with the big beautiful bill. Republicans have said they're open to discussing things like the Obamacare premium subsidies, which we're going to get to, but not with the threat of a shutdown. In part because the reforms that Democrats are demanding in this hostage-taking scenario are really terrible, and there needs to be fixes made to it. But here is one more Democrat saying the quiet part out loud. Here's House Democrat Adam Smith.
But this is also an effort of Democrats to stop the autocratic takeover of this country.
They want to stop the, quote, autocratic takeover. Now this, as we have said from the beginning, is a shutdown to appease the far left base who are mad at Donald Trump, but even more mad at Democrats for never doing anything. And so as Adam Smith just did a sort of quiet part out loud moment to highlight, this is about stopping and resisting President Trump more than anything, which goes back to our point. The longer this shutdown goes on, the more Democrats go on TV and say fairly dumb things. But also, we learn more and more about what Democrats are demanding. Senator John Kennedy spoke about this on the floor last week and talked specifically about the cuts in the big beautiful bill that Democrats want to reverse, particularly focused on fraud, waste, and abuse. Here's what Democrats want to restore that was cut before.
They are demanding we put back in
$6 million for media organizations for the Palestinians, $833,000 for transgender people in Nepal, $300,000 for a pride parade in Lesotho, $882,000 for social media mentorship in Serbia, $4.2 million. We took it out. The Congresswoman and the socialist wing of their party says we've got to put that back in for the open government.
As this shutdown goes on, there's going to be more and more information about the insane things that Democrats are demanding in order to reopen the basic functions of the government. But one other key part of this, one Republican focus of their efforts to cut fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid dealt with able-bodied men who are choosing not to work and getting their health care funded by Medicaid. Here's Speaker Johnson just yesterday on this.
And we've got to make sure that young able-bodied men who do not have dependents are working and not riding the wagon. And so we said, don't sit on your couch and play video games. By the way, also not a talking point.
If you are a longtime listener of 10 Minute Drill, you have heard us talk about this before. AEI did a study and found that men, able-bodied men, particularly in their 30s and 40s, who are choosing not to work, played video games like it was a full-time job. And Democrats believe that the government should only be allowed to be reopened if those able-bodied couch potatoes playing video games in their underwear had access to government-funded health insurance again. Everyone believes that's insane. This was an 80-20 issue. But again, Democrats, being led by the nose by their far-left base, are demanding this be in there. Now, Republicans have said we are open to debating some policies, not the cuts to fraud, waste, and abuse, but things like the Obamacare premium subsidies, but we just aren't going to do it in the context of a shutdown. But to help you better understand the Obamacare premium subsidies debate, we're doing something a little bit special today on 10 Minute Drill. This is complex, fairly wonky policy about insurance. And so what we're going to do is we're going to call it a 2-minute drill, where we break down just why Republicans are so concerned about these Obamacare premium subsidies and believe that there needs to be, if there's a debate about this issue, serious fixes to this instead of just rubber stamping an extension of what it was before. This is Democrats' Obamacare Premium Subsidies 101. We're going to break this down for you very quickly. First, we want to cite an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal by Ge Bai. She is a professor of accounting and health policy at Johns Hopkins University, and she wrote, "Let the Obamacare enhanced premium subsidies expire." Now, she went into great detail about why this is such bad policy. But first, you should know it's a pandemic policy. In March 2021, at the height of the pandemic, the American Rescue Plan temporarily extended premium subsidy eligibility to those with incomes above 400%. You'll remember during the pandemic, there was a mad dash from lawmakers in Congress to make it as easy as possible to get insurance and healthcare. People were losing their jobs. There was chaos all over the place. And one thing that they did was make Obamacare subsidies available to people making tons and tons of money. This was done during COVID as a 2-year program, never with the intention of extending it to 4-5 years later. So who qualifies for the Democrats' Obamacare premium subsidies? A family of 4 in Arizona making $600,000 is able to get these subsidies. A married couple in West Virginia making $580,000 is eligible for these subsidies. And a single individual in Vermont making $180,000 is able to get these subsidies. And as we know, these subsidies drive up costs for everybody. You'll remember when Joe Biden passed electric vehicle tax credits, they passed the tax credit for $7,500. That same day, electric vehicle manufacturers announced they were raising their prices $7,500. As Democrats forced these premium subsidies, they changed the costs that insurers want to charge people for their healthcare, distorting the market for everybody and driving up everyone's healthcare costs. Even the Washington Post editorial board had some negative words about Democrats' plans on this. President Joe Biden and congressional Democrats used COVID-19 to justify chasing the mirage of a European-style welfare state without raising the necessary taxes to pay for it. The real problem is that the Affordable Care Act was never actually affordable. Consider what it means that Democrats believe someone making $600,000 needs a subsidy to afford their health care. The reality is Obamacare is a broken mess, and Democrats' plans for it only involve throwing more cash at it, even though the quality of care and availability of care is not getting better, and premiums for people are continuing to rise, even though they're getting these insane subsidies. What Democrats are actually arguing there is that the hardworking people should have to pay through their tax dollars for families making $600,000 to get Obamacare premium subsidies, instead of going through their employer plans or so many other options. This is such an important reminder that Democrats' primary base, as we've seen through this shutdown, is illegal immigrants, rich white people who are using government services for things like healthcare, and then, of course, able-bodied couch potatoes sitting in their underwear playing video games. For our You Can't Make It Up segment today, on Thursday, we're going to do a robust preview of the upcoming Supreme Court term, which just began this week. But one thing that we know we're going to see this term is a little bit more about what Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't understand.
So I don't understand. Can I just understand? And I don't understand. And so what I don't understand, I don't understand your argument. I'm just trying to understand your answer. I don't understand.
That was 10-minute drill friend Comfortably Smug, who spent quite a bit of time compiling together all the different times Justice Jackson said she does not know or doesn't understand something in the last Supreme Court term. And I think with the issues coming up, we're going to hear a lot more of that this term. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on 10-Minute Drill. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. Tell your friends. Have a great day.